Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise, Minchlove and Charlie State.
7 Royal Marines are arrested on suspicion of murder after serving in Afghanistan.
The minister...
Hello, very good morning. It is Friday, the 12th of October.
Also this morning, we're asking if 16 and 17-year-olds should be allowed to vote and how many of them would actually bother if they were.
And Carol has the weather. We'll see you later.
Good morning. First, our main story. 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering an insurgent while serving in Afghanistan. They're being questioned by the Royal Military Police about an incident in Helmand province last year.
It's thought to be the first time that UK servicemen have been arrested on such charges during the conflicts.
Very much. Speak to you later in the programme.
Moving on to one of our other main stories, and there are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
It's one of many allegations which have been made against the star. Meanwhile, the BBC's Director General has asked a senior executive to talk to Newsnight journalists about the controversial decision to drop the programme's investigation into sexual abuse allegations against Jimmy Savile. Yes, in the next half hour we'll be hearing how people in Leeds are reacting to the scandal surrounding one of the city's most famous sons.
The Independent Police Complaints Commission will set out later what action it plans to take over allegations made in last month's damning report on the Hillsborough disaster.
British Gas is expected to announce increases to its gas and electricity charges later this morning.
The amount of NHS money spent treating middle-aged and older people for alcohol-related problems in England is more than 10 times that spent on teenagers and young adults.
A report by the charity Alcohol Concern found the cost of hospital admissions of 55 to 74-year-olds was more than £825 million.
2 vice-presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only television debate.
A service of remembrance has been held on the Indonesian island of Bali to mark the 10th anniversary of a bombing that killed over 200 people.
The UK's first atomic bomb store, a roller coaster and a 100-year-old cinema are among nearly 6,000 historic sites at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
English Heritage says more needs to be done to restore ageing buildings and is encouraging local communities to find new uses for them. Now to a story that'll warm your cockles. Meet Patrick. There he is, safe and sound.
Thank goodness for that. Those are the main stories for you this morning. Carol will have the weekend's weather in about 10 minutes' time for you.
Katie's got sport for us today.
Good morning. Yes, World Cup qualifiers, of course, this evening. Wales and Scotland are in action. England as well. They take on San Marino, the joint worst team in the world. Population of 33,000, so you can actually fit San Marino 3 times over almost in Wembley. So nothing but a win, I think, will do for Roy Hodgson's side this evening. Hodgson, if he doesn't get a whole hatful of goals against San Marino tonight.
OK, thanks very much. See you later on.
Let's have a quick look at the front pages of the newspapers. The Daily Express, they're talking about energy bills. We'll be talking about that throughout the programme this morning. And advice, actually, about what you can do, if anything, to help yourselves with the energy bills.
Yes, front page of The Sun concentrating on...
Front page of the Mirror, they've also got more on the Jimmy Savile story and these stories.
And front page of the Daily Telegraph, parents will be able to show the big picture story. There's rather the exact figures as yet, but definitely prices going up.
This is a question I'm sure being asked by lots of people as well, the Independent.
Yes, on the front page of the Times, again, the fuel price stories. Information for you on the programme today, including consumer advice as to whether or not you can switch suppliers.
And is it worth doing so or not?
And if it's worth doing that.
Do you ever feel like going on strike at home over the washing up and your children leaving things behind all over the place? Because this lady, I think before one of them noticed one of the children, and by 6 days they were begging for help to clear it up. And what the mum was doing was she was thinking that.
I mean, it's not that bad, is it?
That's my kitchen.
It's not mine. I'm not coming around to clear up either.
I know, yeah.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you both. You mentioned in a lot of the papers, of course, the story about British Gas and the price rises. So we're expecting that announcement at 7 a.m. on the stock market. So I'll bring you that a bit later. Prices always going up, petrol, things like that. Well, yesterday, underneath this rather bizarre picture of Charlotte Johansson, you'll see this story here in...
But that's not the price he actually paid, presumably.
Yeah, no, that's what he paid at the counter because they couldn't do it.
They stuck to the...
Yeah.
Oh.
So there you go. So and then they realised, obviously, when suddenly
everyone was only paying about less than a tenner.
For that?
I
No.
do.
I mean, thanks very much, Steph. See you later on.
See ya.
It is 19 minutes past 6. You're watching Breakfast on BBC News. The main stories here this morning. Let's have our first proper catch-up with the weather. Carol's got it. Morning, Carol.
Good morning,
Do, Carol. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol. Time now is 6:22. When Jimmy Savile died last year, he was remembered for being someone who'd helped make the dreams of children come true and raise millions of pounds for charity. Thousands of fans gathered to pay their respects as his golden coffin was driven through his hometown of Leeds.
But as stories of abuse grow, people living there have begun to question what they really knew about one of the city's most famous sons. Chris Buckley has been to meet some of those left reeling by the allegations.
Time now, 6:25.
Now, you can get married, join the armed forces, even have to pay taxes, all at the age of 16. But should you also be allowed to vote?
It's thought a plan to lower the voting age for a poll on Scottish independence could affect other votes across the UK.
But would it make any difference? And would young people embrace the move and actually go out and vote? We asked these college students.
Interesting
That's
hearing some
us
of those
told, isn't
thoughts,
it?
isn't it? It really is. 16, is it too young to vote? We want to know your thoughts today, so do let us know, talking about it throughout the programme.
Yes, you can text us, you can email us, you can phone us as well. Still to come this morning, Rory Kethlen-Jones is finding out how people in one of the most remote parts of Britain are getting faster broadband than some.
Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise, Minchlove and Charlie State.
Exactly, yes, 6:30. Coming up on the programme this morning, as the number of allegations against Jimmy Savile continue to grow, we'll be speaking to the actress Julie Fernandez, who says the star groped her when she appeared on Jim Will Fix It as a teenager.
With cyclist Lance Armstrong's reputation lying in tatters, fans of the sport are asking how cheating on such a widespread scale was ever allowed to happen. We'll be finding out if there could be more shocks to come.
It is expected that British Gas will announce an increase in its gas and electricity charges in the next hour. Steph will be here with the details. We'll also look at what you can do to try and bring your energy bills down.
And the actor Simon Callow will be here to tell us what it's like to perform 49 different parts in his new one-man show.
All that is still to come. First, though, our main story this morning and 7 royal... let's get more from Andrew North, who's in Kabul for us this morning. Andrew, how unusual a step is this? Thank you.
There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
A decision over whether manslaughter charges could be brought in relation to the Hillsborough disaster will be announced later today.
More NHS money is being spent treating middle-aged and elderly people for alcohol-related problems than on young adults. A report by...
British Gas is expected to announce increases to its gas and electricity charges later on this morning.
The two vice presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only televised debate. Republican...
Nearly 6,000 historic sites are at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
And those are the main stories this morning. Coming up on the programme, Steph looking at plans to let employees give up some of their rights in exchange for a stake in the firm they work for.
Let's catch up on all the day's sport, though, right now. And Katie's here again. Morning.
Good morning. Yes, World Cup qualifiers tonight, of course. Wales, Scotland in action. But Wayne Rooney is wearing the armband for England against San Marino. He says he's a changed man. Of course, he's been sent off twice in his England career. Says that's a thing of the past. He's grown up. He's older and wiser. So we'll see how that goes tonight.
Sam Warburton coming in later for us. Wales rugby captain.
Yeah. Few interesting things to say as well on the Grand Slam.
Isn't it? Thank you very much. Charlie was just trying to ask me about the rules of golf during that, which was...
I didn't know what an eagle was.
It's 2 under par.
Oh, you see, I was right.
You were right.
Yes, very happy with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the cyclist Lance Armstrong has been labelled a serial cheat who relied on drugs to win 7 Tour de France titles. The US anti-doping agency has said he was part of the most sophisticated and successful doping programme the sport has ever seen.
Despite years of rumours and Lance Armstrong's denial of any wrongdoing, the report has left not only fans but many in the sport asking how such cheating on such a widespread scale was allowed to continue, and could it happen again?
Well, joining us now is Graham Arthur from... Thanks very much. extraordinary reading through some of the 1,000 pages of evidence, and they call it a sophisticated sort of...
The operations are run now. That notion that you can, like Lou says, just maybe someone's at the door, you pretend you're not home. I mean, that kind of thing, can that still happen? And what happens if you arrange an appointment and you're not there?
It can happen, but you won't get
happened. Has it? Have you brought that process? Has that worked?
We've not had to do that happen.
Standard for a lot of people now thinking that your organisations, those who are trying to stop doping, frankly, are struggling. Can you give us an idea of how many people you have successfully caught in the UK?
And I know you've looked through all the Lance Armstrong evidence as well. I mean, you know, with that kind of sophisticated, and you know, some of it was very sophisticated.
Maybe a naive question, but by way of a deterrent, I mean, would it help if it was a criminal issue? Because you prosecute people, but they're prosecuted within the sport, aren't they?
That's right.
And then they're penalised within the sport.
Yes.
But effectively, what they're doing, it's a form of fraud, isn't it? Because it's fraudulent behaviour because they're cheating. I mean, has there ever been a thought process along those lines?
Well, yes, but they also went to prison for doing the same thing. So they...
Good to talk to you. Thanks for your time here on Breakfast
Thank
this morning.
you. Let's see, 6:44 is the time now. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Our main stories this morning, 7. Also coming up in the programme is 16, too young to vote.
Let's catch up with the weather. And Carol's got a lovely dawn with her this morning. Morning. Good morning, Carol. See you later.
Thanks very much, Carol. Let's go over to Steph now. Steph, you're talking about employment rights and this Conservative announcement about how you can give some of that up but get something back in return.
Yes, it's one of those stories which clearly has advantages and disadvantages. So let me just... Now, I'll be back a bit later.
Steph, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, imagine living somewhere so remote that you have no mains electricity, no mobile phone reception. Sounds like a dream, actually. And the nearest road is 2 days' hike away. The last thing you would expect to get is broadband internet connection.
But in northwest Scotland, a new project is linking communities to the World Wide Web. With some speedy results, our technology correspondent, Rory Catherine-Jones, is on the Isle of Skye this morning. Good morning, Rory.
Isn't it, Rory? Thank you very much. See you later.
Let's see what's coming up on the programme today. We're looking at one budget...
And that's a smaller one than that as well, isn't it? Right now, let's catch up on the news, travel and weather where you are. We'll see you at 7 with the headlines.
Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise, Minchlove and Charlie State.
7 Royal Marines are arrested on suspicion of murder after serving in Afghanistan.
The Ministry...
Good morning. It is Friday, the 12th of October.
Also this morning,
Also this morning, we're asking if 16 and 17-year-olds should be allowed to vote and how many of them would actually bother if they were.
And Carol has the weather.
Very good morning. Our main story here this morning. 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering an insurgent while serving in Afghanistan. They've been questioned by the Royal Military Police about an incident in Helmand province last year.
It's thought to be the first time UK servicemen have been arrested on such charges during the conflict. There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
It's one of many allegations which have been made against the star. Meanwhile, the BBC's Director General has asked a senior executive to talk to Newsnight journalists about the controversial decision to drop the programme's investigation into sexual abuse allegations against Jimmy Savile. And in 10 minutes here on Breakfast, we'll be hearing how the people of Leeds are reacting to the scandal surrounding one of the city's most famous sons.
A decision over whether manslaughter charges could be brought in relation to the Hillsborough disaster will be announced later.
More NHS money is being spent treating middle-aged and elderly people for alcohol-related problems than on young adults. A report by the charity.
British Gas is expected to announce an increase in its prices for both gas and electricity any time now.
Yes, absolutely. The BBC understands that tariffs will rise by up to 7%, which could add up to £90 a year for fuel bills. That's dual fuel bills. Steph is here. It's not out yet, is it? But widely trailed this.
Yes, some speculation about...
Things for yourself.
Yes, now's the time to do it in the next 20 minutes, I reckon. No pressure.
We'll be getting advice for you a little bit later on that as well, what you can do to try and keep those bills down.
The two vice presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only television debate. Republican.
A service of remembrance has been held on the Indonesian island of Bali to mark the 10th anniversary of a bombing that killed over 200 people.
The UK's first atomic bomb store, a roller coaster and a 100-year-old cinema are among nearly 6,000 historic sites at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
English Heritage says more needs to be done to restore ageing buildings and is encouraging local communities to find new uses for them.
So meet a lucky lobster. Here, those are the main stories this morning. Just gone 10 minutes past 7. Carol will have the weather for us in a few minutes' time.
Let's get more on our main story this morning. And 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a rebel fighter while serving in Afghanistan.
The Ministry of Defence has said the arrest by the Royal Military Police relate to an incident last year when 3 Commando Brigade was based in Helmand. Louise is at Stonehenge.
More on that right now. Professor Michael Clark, Director of the Royal United Services Institute, joins us from London. Morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Morning.
So very few details, but how unusual is this type of thing? And there are rules of engagement by which they have to follow, aren't there?
There are very
Michael Clark from RUSI, thank you.
Just coming up to 14 minutes past 7, there are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
As stories of abuse grow, people living in his hometown of Leeds have begun to question what they really knew about one of the city's most famous sons. Chris Buckler.
Let's see, time now is 18 minutes past 7. Coming up on the programme today. First, though, let's have a look at the weather with Carol. Good morning.
Good morning. We've got me.
Thank you.
on the wrong programme.
Simon Colt has joined us. The ritual that is packing for that holiday. It can be a constant struggle trying to squeeze everything you need in cases light enough and small enough to go in the plane's hold.
But what if you couldn't rely on popping any leftover extras in your hand luggage, like I'm sure lots of us do? Well, budget airline Wizz Air is about to start charging passengers for any cabin baggage too big to fit under the seat in front of you, as Simon says. Sorry, as Charlie says, Simon's here, travel editor of The Independent. So just explain to us what their new rules will be.
Well, this is what you can just about squeeze into one of those frames at the...
You think because it's damaged,
Exactly,
but yeah.
yes. And,
Okay.
and this is everything you could possibly want for a week, I think. What Wizz Air is doing is saying, OK, you can't take anything this big unless you pay for it, as opposed to 60 litres.
Yes.
And if you want to bring a bigger bag on, you're going to have to pay €10 or £9 for the privilege.
Does it work that they can lower fares? Because, do that maths for me, I can't work that one
OK,
out.
well, some people will be paying, take a big bag on board, and they say, so we've got lighter planes, that's saving us fuel. Been trying to cram one of these into the overhead lockers, the flight's late, and that's bad news for the low-cost airlines. So they say,
It does seem we've got ourselves sort of an extraordinary situation. As you say, you're getting on an aeroplane now, everybody doesn't want to put baggage into the hold because you're charged for it. So everybody's trying to take these kind of bags put them into the lockers. So where does it end, Simon?
well, exactly.
Those ridiculous arguments where you're trying to put a bag into the thing, don't you? I mean, how are they going to police it?
Well, instead of just having that one frame where you're trying to squeeze it in, you're going to have two. One for the large piece, which you've paid for, and another one for the smaller piece. By the way, But of course, other airlines are available. British Airways will check in a bag for nothing and one of these all for free.
So let me just get this clear. So you pay for the bag to go on. So it does go on with you. It goes on the
Yeah.
plane. So you're not discouraged from actually taking the luggage.
Oh, no, you're allowed
So
to take
if
it on.
everybody takes the bags on still and pays for them, there's the money equation doesn't work anymore, does it?
But unfortunately, rather too many of us have been taking rather too large bags.
Simon, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Still to come on breakfast this morning.
Well, it's time to get the news, travel and weather where you are. See you in a moment. Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise, Minchlove and Charlie State.
Just coming up to 7:30, our main news this morning. 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a rebel fighter while serving in Afghanistan. There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
A decision over whether manslaughter charges could be brought in relation to the Hillsborough disaster will be announced later.
More NHS money is being spent treating middle-aged and elderly people for alcohol-related problems than on young adults.
British Gas is expected to announce increases in its gas and electricity charges later this morning.
The two vice presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only television debate. Republican.
Nearly 6,000 historic sites are at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
That's a look at the main stories this morning. Coming up on the programme, Steph will be looking at what our rights are when we shop online.
So the sport now, Katie's here.
Yes, good morning. World Cup qualifiers this evening. Big game for Wales and Scotland. England, a sellout against officially the worst team in world football. So quite an interesting one. San Marino have a population of around 30,000, so they could fit into Wembley almost 3 times over, but it's going to be a sellout there.
Into his Ali and all this, you know, it took him back. Yeah, it really took him back.
You had to do community service, didn't you?
Yeah, I've done a lot of community service.
Gold medal.
It's stashed away somewhere, yeah. I'll put it away.
In a really safe place.
Yeah, I haven't got it.
Do that thing. Can we do the hand comparison?
Oh my God.
I've been sitting here. Look at this. Can we see this? Look. The extraordinary hands.
Fighter's hands.
Fighter's hands. Oh. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much, Anthony. Thanks.
Let's see. Time now is 7:39. You can get married, join the armed forces, even have to pay taxes, all at the age of 16. But should you be allowed to vote?
Yeah, it's thought that a plan to lower the voting age for a poll on Scottish independence could affect other voters across the UK.
But would it make a difference? And would young people embrace the move? We asked these college students. Well, let's talk to some other people about this story now. It's Andrew Russell, who's head.
I'm studying law, psychology, literature and media.
So you're an interested party. If you had the chance, would you want to vote?
Would I want? What about your view on that? Would it make a difference to young people? Would they be interested in voting as well?
Well, I think there's plenty of evidence that young people are interested.
Isn't it? Whether they would actually go out and vote, because that's really important, isn't it?
Well, if you look in the Isle of Man...
Professor, that we as older people are not... We can't really lecture, though, because our turnout rate in elections, general elections, not too bad, but it gets worse and worse, doesn't it?
That's absolutely...
See, you would go out and vote. What about your friends? What do they say?
Yeah, I mean, lots of them are interested in politics. I've got lots...
The point the Professor's making is that it is possible to, get, as you do, get involved in politics in terms of real-world politics, what goes on, without having the vote. So you can do things in your society that will change things without necessarily being able to vote.
Yeah, I know, but...
Strong argument. I mean, it would be a brave politician to sit next to someone of this age and say, yes, you can go and get pregnant, as you mentioned a moment ago, legally, and yet we won't give you the right to have a say in the world you live in.
Yeah, because you're less likely to leave school at 16 and to be paying taxes and to be paying that full commitment to society.
Sorry, you were going to say something then?
I was just going to...
What's your overall impression of politicians? Because it's relevant in a way, because often younger people sort of think of politicians as being so far removed from them, you know, in terms of the lives they've led, possibly the privilege they've had, and so they can't really represent them at all, and that's part of the problem.
I don't know if...
Very interesting. Thank you both very much for your time.
It is 7:45. You're watching Breakfast on BBC News. Let's remind you of the main stories this morning. Coming up on the programme later today.
Let's have a look at the weather now. Carol's there for us.
Good morning.
Carol, thank you.
Carol, thank you very much. Everybody buys things over the internet, apparently.
Apart
from me. I have done once, I think. But Steph, worries about consumer protection.
Is it normally your people who buy you things? Yes, we're talking about consumer rights.
OK, Steph, see you later. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. Time now, 7:52. Remember Audrey Hepburn's little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's, or those ruby slippers featured in The Wizard of Oz? They're about to go on display as part of a major exhibition of Hollywood costumes.
The show at London Victoria and Albert Museum will feature outfits worn by cinema greats like Marilyn Monroe and Charlie Chaplin, as well as 21st century stars. Jenny Hill has been having a look.
We've got a new phrase for the morning, haven't we?
Yep.
Costume design archaeology. That's
what
that lady said,
I'm going to
Professor.
refer to... Do you know what? My cupboard is now going to become that.
Put a thing on the door.
Coming up on the programme later today.
It's coming up later. Time now to get the news, travel and weather where you are.
Hello, very good morning. It is Friday, the 12th of October.
Also this morning,
The man who has become Charles Dickens for a generation of fans, Simon Callow, will be here after 9 as well.
And Carol has the weather.
Good morning.
Well, thank you.
Good morning. Our main story for you. 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a rebel fighter while serving in Afghanistan. They're being questioned by the Royal Military Police about an incident in Helmand province last year.
It's thought to be the first time UK servicemen have been arrested on such charges during the conflict.
There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
It's one of many allegations which have been made against the star. Meanwhile, the BBC's Director General has asked a senior executive to talk to Newsnight journalists about the controversial decision to drop the programme's investigation into sexual abuse allegations against Jimmy Savile. A decision over whether manslaughter charges could be brought in relation to the Hillsborough disaster will be announced later.
More NHS money is being spent treating middle-aged and elderly people for alcohol-related problems than on young adults.
British Gas, Britain's biggest energy supplier, has today begun notifying customers that it will raise gas and electricity prices. And around 10 minutes' time, we'll be talking to Claire Francis from moneysupermarket.com about how to minimise any effect on your fuel bills.
The 2 vice presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only television debate.
A service of remembrance has been held on the Indonesian island of Bali to mark the 10th anniversary of a bombing that killed over 200 people.
The UK's first atomic bomb store, a roller coaster and a 100-year-old cinema are among nearly 6,000 historic sites at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
Yes, English Heritage says more needs to be done to restore ageing buildings and is encouraging local communities to find new uses for them.
That's a look at the main stories this morning. Carol will have a look at the weekend's weather in the next 10 minutes or so for you.
Yes, and the time now is 10 minutes past 8. There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action.
Well, as stories of abuse grow, people living in his hometown of Leeds have begun to question what they really knew about one of the city's most famous sons. Chris Buckler is there for this morning. Thank you.
It's just coming up to 8:15. Let's have a look at the weather now with Carol. Yes, thank you very much, Carol.
I'm listening, just sort of watching you because you're so...
17 minutes past 8 is the time now.
Coming up on the programme today. It's at 18 minutes past 8. British Gas, Britain's biggest energy supplier, has today begun notifying customers that it will raise gas and electricity prices by an average of 6% from next month.
As a result, annual fuel bills will increase by around £80 a year. So, what can you do to protect yourself against rises in the cost of energy? We're joined by Claire Francis. Rise, this, isn't it?
Yes, and it was expected. SSE announced back in August that it was increasing prices. Its price hike.
What are the cheapest deals? Are they the fixed deals, or what should people be looking for?
Yeah, I think at the
the cynic in me says if something's cheaper, there must be a reason. I mean, is it as straightforward as that? That what you're getting from there is £200 cheaper. The fixed deal's not available with British Gas.
Yeah, this is sort of rise. There seems to be no end to it. So we're always having this sort of eternal battle: switch, fix. It just seems never-ending. Do you see an end to it or not?
Purely practical level, people who haven't switched before, and there are a lot of people who've never switched before, and I know that's seen as part of the problem.
Have you with British Gas, haven't you?
16th of November,
okay.
And expect more price increases from the other providers as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now imagine living somewhere so remote that you have no mains electricity, no mobile phone reception, and the nearest road is 2 days hike away. The last thing you would expect to get there is broadband internet connection.
But in northwest Scotland, a new project is linking communities to the World Wide Web, and with some speedy results. Our technology correspondent, Rory Catherine-Jones, is on the Isle of Skye this morning, and we can finally see the beautiful scenery.
Thank you.
Time now 8:28. Coming up, the BBC News Channel, of course, has the latest news from home and abroad.
Here on Breakfast, though, can you name the...
Right now, though, it's time to get the news, travel and weather where you are. Hello, this is Breakfast with Louise, Minchlove and Charlie State.
It is just after 8:30. The main news this morning. 7 Royal Marines have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a rebel fighter while serving in Afghanistan. There are new allegations that Jimmy Savile abused a 12-year-old girl at a children's home in Leeds in the 70s. A former resident of the home says the incident was reported to social workers, but they decided not to take any action. It's one of...
A decision over whether manslaughter charges could be brought in relation to the Hillsborough disaster will be announced later. The Director of Public...
British Gas, Britain's biggest energy supplier, has today begun notifying customers that it will raise gas and electricity prices.
More NHS money is being spent treating middle-aged and elderly people for alcohol-related problems than on young adults. A report...
The 2 vice presidential candidates in the US election have clashed in their only television debate.
A service of remembrance has been held on the Indonesian island of Bali to mark the 10th anniversary of a bombing that killed over 200 people.
And the Queen has pulled out of appearing at investiture ceremony today because of a sore back. Buckingham Palace say the monarch was due to present knighthood, CBEs and other honours to a range of recipients at Windsor Castle, but the event will now be hosted by the Prince of Wales.
Nearly 6,000 historic sites are at risk of being destroyed by damage and neglect.
That's a look at the main stories this morning. Now here's what's coming up later in the programme. I love being called a national treasure. Do you think he'll like that? He might not. Let's catch up with Sport. Katie, morning.
I think he'll probably hate it, actually. Yes, good morning. World Cup qualifiers tonight, of course. Big game for Wales, Scotland. Big game for different reasons for England. They're playing the officially the worst team in world football, the joint worst team in world football, San Marino. So they'll be expecting a big result there, really. Again.
Are they professional players?
No. Well, I think they have one professional player, but they're made up of bar owners, teachers. Because San Marino only has a population of 33,000, so I think, you know, if I went and got citizenship at San Marino, I might be in with a chance of making the bench, possibly, I don't know.
There's a challenge.
There's a challenge, I know.
We can give that to Mike
Bushell.
Yeah. Are they underway?
It's obviously the line is...
But about the captaincy, I mean, you can be honest with us. Do those discussions take place early on? Would you
take it if you're offered it?
I don't think anybody... No, you definitely couldn't turn that down. It's probably the...
End of the days of the little guy in rugby. I mean, Shane Williams is no longer in the Welsh international operation. There's no place...
Definitely getting bigger, that's for sure. And Saïd does play a massive part.
Good to see you this morning.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
If that call comes in, the answer would be immediate yes, would it? And delight?
Of course, yes. Thanks.
Good luck. Thanks very much. Thanks, Katie, as well.
Time now, 8:43. Let's have a look at the weather. Carol's there for us.
Thank you, Charlie. Good morning.
You told us that every day, Carol, but I will. Thank you.
Now, we're all familiar with the ritual that is packing for a holiday. It can be a constant struggle trying to squeeze everything you need in cases light enough to go in the plane's hold.
But what if you couldn't rely on popping any leftover extras, like people do, in your hand luggage? Well, budget airline Wizz Air is about to start charging passengers for any cabin baggage too big to fit under the seat in front of you.
Yeah, Simon, demonstration. Show us
demonstration
what we're
models.
About.
Come on,
okay, right. You won't be able to check in a bag for free. Not anymore, but you can on many airlines check in something this big. So quite enough for a week's holiday, I should.
So where would that go?
That would go in the bin above your seat, so the overhead racks.
I'm amazed that you'd be allowed something.
Oh
that big.
no, it just squeezes in. You can see the scuff marks to prove it. But what Wizz Air is doing, and this is the airline that flies from Luton, Liverpool, Prestwick and Doncaster to Eastern Europe, they're saying, aha, no. As from the end of October, you can only take something this size into the cabin, or you're going to have to pay us for it. So, therefore, this has to go under the seat in front of you. Otherwise, you're going to be paying €10, £9 to carry your own bag on board.
So you can still take the bigger bag on,
yes.
And you can take it on the plane with you, but you're charged for it.
Yes, and the ID bags, and as a result, they have problems getting everything squeezed in.
You know, I'm somebody that still likes to take some clothes on holiday, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. And it just seems we can be charged and charged and charged again.
Well, absolutely. Take one of these and one of these into the cabin with you.
Robbie emails in saying that perhaps you should warn people that their hand luggage wasn't weighed on the outward journey with a flight, it doesn't say which airline, but was weighed at Kefalonia on the way back.
Oh, yes.
And that cost them €60.
Absolutely, that will be right.
Here's another one. This crops up every time we talk about this issue. And you raised it there. They say heavier plane, more fuel costs. Yes. So Miranda says, when are they going to start looking at the weight of people getting on the aircraft rather than the weight of the bag. I mean, there's a logical step there.
Well, yes, in public relations terms, it's a difficult...
In a different diet. Just tell us as well, there was an evacuation from an aircraft at Glasgow yesterday, wasn't there?
This was yesterday, the flight from Dalham. Every 6 months or so.
Right.
But,
Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing the bags as well. Thank you.
8:50 is the time now.
Do you remember Audrey Hepburn's little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's, or those ruby slippers featured in The Wizard of Oz? They're about to go on display as part of a major exhibition of Hollywood costumes.
The show at London's Victoria and Albert Museum will feature outfits worn by cinema greats like Marilyn Monroe and Charlie Chaplin, as well as 21st century stars. Jenny Hill has been to look.
They've been called the new Lennon and McCartney and the godfathers of Britpop. It's now nearly 40 years since Glenn Tilbrook and Chris Difford formed the band Squeeze, and they are still going strong.
Tonight, famous names from British music, including Elvis Costello and Mark Knopfler, will pay tribute to the band in a BBC documentary. Glenn and Chris, was that the Lennon and McCartney line that
you like it?
Yeah.
As opposed to hate it? Obviously not. Before we talk to you properly, let's look at some of your best hits.
I go through this ritual sometimes of asking people what's it like watching back.
Golden days.
What is it like?
Golden days.
Is it comfortable? Do you feel proud of the because those songs, people love Squeeze songs, and and one of the things that they do stand the test of time. And you must know that.
They do. And I think...
I don't want to be this to be rude, sort of unsophisticated, isn't it? It was just that it was you, and there wasn't...
standard.
Yeah, which maybe that's... I'm not saying it, no, but it was just clean and straightforward, wasn't it?
And did a few chords and some interesting words.
Yeah.
Having mentioned what you're wearing, I've suddenly noticed the bright green shoes down there.
Shoes, aren't they?
What's all that about?
I saw them. I was in Rome a couple of weeks ago and walked past this shop and
I know, I noticed that as well.
So what a genius morning. What a genius morning.
Can you just recount for us the story of when you two first met? Because there was an advert placed. Who put the advert and who responded? Knowing who was who, it just tickles me. It's like something out of a spy novel. Was it something about a newspaper? Didn't you have to have a newspaper tucked under your arm or something so you recognise one another?
Yeah, Chris.
Because you've got a pop-up, I can't quite remember.
Pop-up tour, yeah.
Pop-up tour.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? I know what a pop-up shop is.
Well, these days...
Technology being the way it is, you can do it literally that quickly.
Well, I haven't done it. Glenn's done it, and
right.
it works.
It works fantastically. I was very wary of delivering something that wasn't going to be a really great listen, you know, but the technology is there to be. Every day is a different sound, presumably, because every game's not exactly the same, it's a different
is it?
show, you know.
We made about you, which you contributed to, and you were filmed separately, talking about each other, weren't you?
Yes.
And have you had a chance to see what the other one said yet? Thing that took you back a bit.
It's a tissue of lies, obviously, from beginning to end.
Was it all good though?
It was, I think. Then.
What do you mean by laundry? What's that?
Well, just about, in the book we were interviewed separately too, and at that point we...
I can't leave it, really.
Shall I lie on the couch?
if you want to.
What did you say? What happened?
It's just about...
It's a very painful process, isn't it, reading? Well, I would find it, and do find it, reading what other people sort of think about you.
Well, I think every marriage should have a book.
I think we see a little bit of the documentary now, so let's have a look. So that's nice, isn't it? Not bad. Elvis Costello has paid tribute to you amongst many other people.
How wonderful is that? It's really great, yeah.
And Jules Holland, I mean, of course, he was in... Was he in the very original lineup or slightly later in the day? How does it...
He was
going on tour with you this time.
No.
Who have you got going on tour with you this time then?
Again?
Yeah. Quite a lot of the show is going to be new songs.
Yeah. Okay. The kind of the drift apart and they come back together. So is the old magic still there? Because you did have everyone says that your writing partnership was a very unique one and very...
Where was it?
After all that time?
Yeah.
Was it a telephone call?
It was on a sofa.
in a television place like that.
And good luck with the tour. Loving the shoes.
Thank you.
So much.
And a reminder, the documentary Squeeze, Take Me, I'm Yours is on BBC4 tonight at 9 o'clock. And the band's pop-up shop tour starts on November the 16th.
Simon Callow is going to be here with us in the next few minutes. First, though, a last quick look at what is happening where you are.
I was just saying, we're saying lots of nice things about people as we introduce them today.
Well, so we
Listen
should.
to this one. He's one of Britain's greatest actors. How about that?
Excellent.
How about playing one of Britain's greatest authors?
Yes, it seems only natural that Simon Callow should be returning to the role of Charles Dickens this year, as it's the bicentenary of the writer's birth.
Currently in London's West End, in a one-man show telling the story of Dickens' life through 49 of his best-loved characters.
Simon's here now, very favourite of those characters, do you think?
Mrs. Gamp, without question.
More on her in a moment. Let's have a look at you on stage. Simon, very good morning to you. Lovely to see you. 49 different characters. That's quite a task, isn't it?
It is, but Dickens...
As soon as you say the word, you're right.
I'm there. I'm there.
And Mrs. Gump, just quickly, because
Mrs. Gump.
I'm showing my ignorance.
Mrs. Gamp is... she's an extraordinary character.
Of course, I dare say that you can preach to the converted, because there'll be people who love Dickens, share your passion. There's another group of people, frankly, who might think, why should I? Why would I want to come to a show with Simon Callow, marvellous actor that he is, doing all Dickens characters? And how do you, that's presumably, I bet anyone faint so far during your renditions.
But they've cried a lot.
So he was political. You also said he was a magician, did you?
He was a magician. Look, Roos, and he would literally make goats appear out of the air. They were on a huge scale. He started.
I mean, some people know a little bit about your own story. That your first job, effectively, in the theatre was you wrote to Laurence Olivier, who was in charge at the National Theatre then, and you said, I want to get a job, and you ended up working in the box office.
Yeah.
That voice. Were you saying what row? Or did the voice come afterwards?
No, the voice came with me. It may have been a little...
16, 17 years old?
I was 18.
18?
Yeah, I'd left school and I didn't actually even ask him for a job. I just wrote him a 3 full scap.
You're obviously very fond of the stage. Do you think it's still like that for young people? Do you think is there still a way in? Or, because we see so many kind of talent shows and all the rest of it these days.
Yeah,
What would you be doing if you... what would you recommend people to do?
Oh, the best thing is to go to a drama school. I went to a great school called the Drama Centre, and it is an unfortunate thing now
to do that thing. I mean, now you're on stage on your own, and days when you were the third spear carrier. And
no.
didn't you?
I did
that way.
The very, very first job I ever did was play
with your head visible, or
visible, very visible, yes. And but mind you, it was in a German expressionist play, so it was a very posh horse, but it was a horse.
You did the spear then.
No, you played Charles Dickens. You're playing him on stage, but you have actually played him in Doctor Who as well, haven't you? We've got
that all gets very confusing.
Yes.
So that was a Doctor Who.
I love that. They're educated people who fell in love, who had their difficulties, who says, yes, and he says, that's very much what I feel about Charles Dickens.
Well, lovely to see you today.
Yes, thanks for coming to see us. Fantastic. And The Mystery of Charles Dickens is on at the Playhouse Theatre in London until November the 10th. Thank you.
This morning, we're here tomorrow from